Karen's voice screeched like a fork on a chalkboard, cutting through the serene hum of the lakeside. "You don't belong here. You filthy trespasser," she bellowed, her jowls quivering as she thrust her phone in the air, already dialing 911. The conflict was absurdly simple. I, a decorated veteran, was taking my usual evening walk by Lake Serenity, a public trail I'd tread for years, when Karen decided my presence offended her pristine view. Her entitlement was a wildfire, and I was just kindling in her path. The lake shimmered under the fading sun, its surface rippling with the kind of peace Karen seemed determined to shatter. I'd been coming here since I moved to this quiet town after my discharge, seeking solace in the crunch of gravel under my boots and the distant call of loons. My dog tags, tucked under my shirt, clinked faintly as I walked, a reminder of battles fought far from this sleepy shore. But Karen, in her garish floral muumuu, had other plans. She'd staked out her lakeside mansion like a dragon guarding gold. And apparently, my existence on this public path was a personal affront. "You're scaring the wildlife," she snapped, though the only wildlife in sight was a duck gliding unbothered across the water. Her face, flushed redder than the sunset, twisted into a sneer as she paced the dock, her flip-flops slapping loudly. "I pay taxes for this view, and I won't have riffraff like you ruining it." Riffraff. The word stung, not because it was true, but because it dripped with the kind of disdain only someone like Karen could muster, someone who saw the world as her personal kingdom and everyone else's serfs. I stopped walking, hands in my pockets, and met her glare. "Ma'am, this is a public trail. I've got as much right to be here as you do." My voice was steady, honed by years of keeping calm under pressure. But Karen wasn't interested in reason. She clutched her phone like a weapon, her voice rising as she spoke to the dispatcher. "Yes. 911. There's a suspicious man loitering by my property. He's threatening me. Send someone now." Threatening her? I almost laughed. The only threat here was to her inflated ego. I stayed put, not because I wanted to escalate, but because I'd learned long ago that running from bullies only makes them bolder. A small crowd had gathered on the grassy knoll nearby, two joggers and an older man with a fishing rod watching the spectacle unfold. Their murmurs carried on the breeze, a mix of amusement and disbelief. Karen, oblivious to their judgment, kept ranting into her phone, painting me as some dangerous drifter. Minutes later, the crunch of tires on gravel announced the sheriff's arrival. Two deputies stepped out, their boots heavy on the dock. Karen's face lit up with triumph, as if she'd just summoned her personal army. "Officers, arrest this man," she demanded, pointing at me like I was a fugitive. "He's trespassing and harassing me." The lead deputy, a tall woman with a no-nonsense braid, raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, calm down. Let's hear both sides." Her partner, a stocky man with a weathered face, glanced at me, then his eyes widened. "Captain Reynolds," he said, his voice tinged with recognition. Before I could respond, he snapped a crisp salute. "Sergeant Tom Willis. Sir. Served under you in Kandahar. 17. It's an honor." Karen's jaw dropped, her phone nearly slipping from her hand. The crowd on the knoll went silent, their phones now out, recording the scene. I returned the salute, a reflex from years of service, and nodded. "Good to see you, Willis. Just taking my evening walk." The deputy grinned, then turned to Karen, whose face was now a sickly shade of pale. "Ma'am, this man's a decorated veteran. He's got every right to be here, You, on the other hand, are wasting our time with a false report. Karen sputtered, her entitlement crumbling like a sandcastle at high tide. False. She's ruining my view. I pay for this lake. The female deputy crossed her arms. You don't own the lake. Ma'am. It's public property. And filing a false 911 call is a misdemeanor. Care to explain why you thought this man was a threat? The question hung in the air, heavy as the humidity. Karen's eyes darted between me, the deputies, and the crowd, who were now whispering and shaking their heads. Her narrative was unraveling, and she knew it. He looked suspicious. She stammered. You can't trust people these days. Willis chuckled, a dry sound that carried no warmth. Suspicious. Captain Reynolds saved my unit from an ambush. The only thing suspicious here is your judgment. The crowd erupted in quiet laughter, and Karen's face contorted with rage and humiliation. She opened her mouth to argue, but no words came. Instead, her knees buckled, and she sank onto the dock, her muumuu pooling around her like a deflated balloon. The deputies exchanged a glance, then turned back to me. You're free to go, Captain, the female deputy said. Enjoy your walk. I nodded, grateful but unsurprised. I'd faced worse than Karen in war zones. Her tantrum was just noise. As I resumed my walk, the crowd clapped softly, their phones still recording. Karen, still sprawled on the dock, clutched her chest, gasping dramatically as if the world had betrayed her. The deputies didn't rush to her aid. They'd seen her kind before, people who wielded their privilege like a club, only to collapse when it backfired. As I rounded the bend, the lake stretching out before me, I thought about the irony. Karen had called 911 to assert her dominance, to prove she was above me, above everyone. But in her desperation to control, she'd only exposed her own fragility. The lake didn't care about her taxes or her tantrums. It just kept shimmering, indifferent to her collapse. The joggers on the knoll dispersed, their whispers fading into the evening. Willis and his partner lingered, ensuring Karen didn't escalate further. I heard her muttering about respect and lawsuits, but her voice was weaker now, drowned out by the lapping waves. I kept walking, my dog tags clinking softly, a reminder that some battles aren't fought with guns or fists, they're fought by standing your ground, quietly, until the world sees the truth. Karen's meltdown would be the talk of the town by morning, probably viral on X by noon. But for me, it was just another evening by Lake Serenity, where the water reflected the sky and the world felt right again. I'd survived wars, ambushes, and worse. A Karen was no match for that. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the lake in hues of gold and crimson. I took a deep breath, letting the peace settle back in. Karen's world might have crumbled, but mine was still standing. And that was enough. The end.